Hi, my name is Chris McLean. Every time someone buys a product, they're hiring it to do a job. The overall function is a clear statement of that job. If you get it right, you'll be hired for life. Every design solves a problem for a user. In solving that problem, it's doing a job. So, the overall function is the overall job done by your design in as few words as possible. The overall function is composed early in the design process, after you know your user and their problem, and before you brainstorm. It doesn't need to sound exciting. This is not a marketing phrase. Your customer will never hear it. But it does a lot of work. It has to align with your user and their problem, use descriptive and specific language, state and allow all possible solutions, and guide your creativity without limiting it. That's a lot to do for, say, 3 to 10 words. Let's work it through. We've all had the wrong job, so we know some of the misery that can come with that. For me, it was being a vacuum salesman. It was the perfect job for the people around me, but it wasn't the perfect job for me. If your design is doing the wrong job, it won't get hired. It won't get purchased. Sales will be low. Even worse, it might get hired to do the wrong job. Then it will get fired with a bad review, and that bad review will affect all future sales. In your own life, you know when you found the perfect job. You also own designs that are a perfect fit for the job you need them to do. A great overall function will help you find that perfect fit for your users. Within any overall job, there are subjobs. Finding the overall function is about finding the overarching job that contains all of the subjobs. To do this, you need a good sense of the boundary of your design. Your design can't do everything. It is a system, but it fits within the system of your user's life, and it has to find a place within that system. And just like a regular job, there might not be enough to do. More likely, though, the job has crept to the point where there's too much to do. Finding the right size or scale of problem is tough to solve. What parts of the problem will you solve? What parts will you leave to others? Your pencil doesn't compose the words, move itself, and decide which words to write and erase. That's your job, for now. But it does mark the page, transmit the movements of your hand to the point of the pencil, and erase the unwanted lines. And that's been enough for hundreds of years. Typically, we write the overall function before the subfunctions because it contains all of the subfunctions, but there's often some iteration. Writing the overall function helps you wrap your arms around the problem, and it helps you avoid undersizing or oversizing the problem. Every overall function is 2 or 3 specific elements in a specific order. This is going to sound like a grammar lesson because it is. And I'm going to be pedantic about the words you use and how you use them, because in writing the overall function, you're really framing your entire design. Beginnings are delicate. We start with a verb, which is an action word, then a noun, which is a specific thing or things, and then a prepositional phrase, which is the toughest part. A preposition typically shows direction, location, or time. Some examples are along, beneath, and after. A prepositional phrase is a preposition, the object of the preposition, and words that modify the object. The best way to understand this is to see it in action. Here are 5 overall functions. Record ideas on paper. Convert solar energy into electrical energy. Extract coffee from grounds. Protect head from impact while playing hockey. And propel payload into space. In the last column, the bolded words are the prepositions. They all have these 3 elements, and those 3 elements are enough to describe every design job. Now we're going to dig even further into what's important about these 3 elements. I said your overall function doesn't have to be exciting, but it does have to be these 3 things. First, it has to be descriptive, specific, and precise. There is a fantastic word for what you mean. I use a thesaurus to find that word for my designs. For example, you could say move, but it's better to say transfer, transport, shift, relocate, transplant, lead, or distribute. That will get you from move animal in a vehicle to transport cat in a plane. The second one clarifies the problem and points you in the right direction for brainstorming. The second thing is that it has to be general. That sounds like the opposite of descriptive and specific, but I'm talking about something different. The overall function can't dictate the solution. Every possible solution for the problem should be described by your overall function. So, in this sense, it's what it does, not how it does it. Focus on the what and leave the how to brainstorming. And finally, we leave out adjectives and adverbs. An adjective is something like bright or dark. It describes a noun. You can use numbers if you need to. If the job was to transport 5 cats, that would be important to include. An adverb is something like quickly or slowly. It modifies a verb. Adjectives and adverbs describe how well something is done. They help us distinguish between better and worse solutions, so they are important. They typically come up in 2 places. Earlier in quality function deployment, when users are talking about what a good solution is, and later in brainstorming, when we're choosing the best option, again, based on what our users think a good solution is. These are criteria, and there are some good examples in episode 2 on making decisions. Using the right words gives you insight and guidance when you're brainstorming. You'll know what problem to solve. Using the wrong words could limit your creativity and lead you to a specific solution. As long as you're sticking to the main concept, overall job, verb, noun, prepositional phrase, you'll be fine. I was in the weeds a lot here, but don't get stuck there. Make it work for you. Use the most descriptive words possible. Don't restrict yourself solution-wise, and stay away from how well your design does the job. Leave that to the criteria. If you get it right, your overall function will be a great springboard for brainstorming. If you have a design on the go, write an overall function for it now. In 3 to 10 words, you can clarify the entire premise of your design. And if you'd like to start turning your ideas into products, please check out the Heroic Design Workbook. The link is in the notes below. Thank you for your time and attention.